It is 6:30, the nicest day of the week, and we're inside. Thank everybody for being here. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council of City of Holland. The mayor apologizes for not being here. He is under the weather. We hope him speedy recovery. And we will do something now that we have done for an awful long time after the roll call. Madam Clerk?
Byrd.
Present.
Peters. Garcia.
Here.
Arnshorst. Here. Corbin. Here. Hoekstra.
Here.
Raymond. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Trethewey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And now, if you so inclined, like to do something we've done for many decades, centuries too, for that matter.
Seems like it.
Seems like it. Opening prayer will be led by City Attorney Vanderveen and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you stand with us, please, if you were so inclined?
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we pause before we start this meeting to come before you, and we give thanks to you. Thanks for such a beautiful West Michigan day today and the sunshine that it brings with us. Thanks that we can be here tonight and that people in our community can come before council and speak to them and express their concerns freely. We pray that your mercy and healing will be on the people that are sick with the flu viruses and other viruses circulating this time of year. Pray for your wisdom on decisions great and small tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ron. The next thing on the agenda is the reading of the consent agenda. The clerk will be reading that consent agenda in just a moment. At that time, if there is anything on that consent agenda that you have come this evening to speak about, we'll ask that you come up and have that removed from the consent agenda. It will follow in its normal sequence. The same thing will happen with council members if they have any item that they would like to remove from that. Madam Clerk?
4A, absences excused, Mayor Box. 4B, approval of minutes, the February 5, 2020 regular meeting, February 12, 2020 study session. 4C, oaths of office. 4D, Holland Board of Public Works, 21st Street reconstruction contract. 4E, city clerk, claim filed against the city. 4F, city clerk, Warner Vineyards, wine tasting room. 4G, transportation, accept traffic engineering study of 12th and River intersection and authorize preliminary engineering for traffic signal. 4H, transportation, authorize mayor and city clerk to sign contract for Pine Avenue Stormwater Lift Station. 4I, community neighborhood, Department of Environment, Energy, and Great Lakes Recycling Quality Improvement Grant application. 4J, finance, PA 198 tax abatement, set public hearing for March 4, regular meeting for Hudsonville Creamery and Ice Cream Company, LLC. 4K, finance, purchasing, motor pool, plow truck. 4L, revocable license agreement, wayfinding signs, Fairbanks Avenue and 16th Street. 4M, management administration services, operating agreement with Michigan Department of Natural Resources for a MI Holland cam at Holland State Park.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Those items are items that we had discussed in previous meetings, and we will handle them with one vote unless there is one that the audience would like to remove. I ask that you come forward this time and ask for that to be removed. Seeing no one, same question of council. Any items from the consent to be removed? Seeing no motions, entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Hoekstra,
Oops.
Arnshorst. Any discussion? We have a roll call on that, Madam Clerk.
Byrd.
Yes.
Peters. Garcia.
Yes.
Arnshorst.
Yes.
Corbin. Hoekstra.
Yes.
Raymond. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Trufoulie.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 5 on our agenda is public comment. This is the time in the agenda that you can address council. This is a one-way conversation. You're speaking to us. There will be no other interaction beyond that. We ask that you state your name and address for the record. You are limited to 5 minutes. You will see there are some dots in front of me. The green dots mean you're good to go. Once you see the yellow dot, you have 1 minute. The red dot is your conversation time is done, and we adhere to those rules very strictly. Open for public comment at this point.
My name is Dave Van Wylen. I live at 51 East 8th Street, Suite 200. I'm the first of several of us from Hope College who will speak tonight. I'm talking tonight from my role as the Dean for Natural and Applied Sciences at Hope College, and I want to share 2 thoughts with you. First, I want to share my perspective on science and scientists. I'm not a climate scientist, but I am a scientist. My area of research has been the heart, and I'm proud to have helped in a small way to build an understanding of the heart that has improved the care for people with heart disease and those who experience heart attacks. Science is a vast and diverse enterprise. However, whether it's cardiac research or climate research, the nature of science itself and the character of the scientists who practice it are similar. In a nutshell, using continually improving technology, scientists seek to understand that which we can measure and observe in the world around us. From the subatomic world that fascinates nuclear physicists to the workings of the human body that was my focus, to the complex interrelationships between human activity and climate that forms the basis of climate science. In the name of enhanced understanding, scientists do our best to ask relevant questions, design thoughtful experiments, use appropriate equipment, measure the right variables, apply accepted scientific processes, be honest with our data, and interpret our findings with integrity. But science does not end with just seeking to understand the world around us. In many cases, scientists feel compelled to use their emerging understanding to improve the human condition or address the impact of human actions. And by and large, humans readily trust what science and scientists offer. Just think how much you trust scientists and the scientific enterprise. Every time you drive over a bridge, you are not only trusting the scientists who have brought us vehicles that reliably and safely start, move, and stop, but you are trusting the chemists who understand bridge materials and the engineers who have done the scientific calculations about these materials and the loads they can bear. We take medicines prescribed by physicians, trusting the biomedical scientists who built the understanding upon which these treatments are based and the scientific process that tested these markets so that they can be safely brought to use. Right now, we are trusting scientists in the scientific process in the feverish work to understand and remedy the recent coronavirus outbreak. So knowing how readily we trust science and scientists in so many areas of our lives, the skepticism over climate science baffles me. The overwhelming scientific consensus, as will be described by Professor Murray, the unfolding impact of climate change here and all over the world, the urgent predictions for the future. These, when combined with our ability to act to alleviate climate change, should compel us to action. Just as with the heart or coronavirus research, if climate science suggests we can improve the well-being of humans and the planet, we should trust this science and act on its recommendations. That was a long first thought. The second thought I want to share with you is much shorter. It's an offer on behalf of the scientists at Hope College to do what we can to help you and others in our community understand the underlying science of climate change and why we find the science compelling and urgent enough that we stand in front of you tonight encouraging the City of Holland to be a leader in reducing our carbon footprint. The scientists at Hope College are not distant and unknown scientists. We are your neighbors and fellow West Michiganders. Understanding is the basis of wise decision-making. We want to help the City of Holland act with understanding and wisdom as we take action to combat climate change. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Greg Murray, and I live at 385 142nd Avenue. I'm a professor of biology at Hope College, and I'm here tonight to encourage City Council to increase its efforts to cut our area's carbon footprint. For decades now, scientists have measured increasing concentrations of gases like carbon dioxide and methane in our atmosphere, and they've expected that accumulation to drive an increase in global temperature and even more profound changes in precipitation patterns. The basic workings of our planet's climate system is actually pretty well understood, even though the short-term details, the things that we call weather, are less easy to predict over shorter periods of time. And of course, we've been seeing the very consequences that were anticipated. We've seen melting glaciers, melting sea ice and permafrost, rising sea levels that threaten millions of people across the planet. And we've also seen lots of other of the predicted changes as well, some of them more quickly than we anticipated originally. That excess carbon dioxide in particular is also acidifying the oceans and thereby threatening the marine ecosystems that millions of people depend upon for their primary source of protein. Already we've seen extinctions and range changes as species move to try to stay in the climate conditions that they're adapted to, but many of them aren't able to move fast enough, or they get to the top of the mountain ranges in which they occur and don't have anywhere higher to move to. That isn't something that's just predicted for the future. I've seen it myself during my own relatively brief career as a scientist working in the mountains of Costa Rica. Species that I knew well at one time, like the golden toad, are now globally extinct. Here in Michigan, we can expect summers like those in Arkansas by the end of this century, and we need irrigation. We're going to need irrigation for more of our crops. Right here in Holland, we can expect a quadrupling of days above 90 degrees Fahrenheit in just the next 30 years, and about 78 days by the end of the century. We can expect more frequent flooding events like we had in 2007 and 2008. The consequences for agriculture, for human health, for wildlife and business are going to be profound, as will the consequences even for the BPW, because the demand for cooling in the summer is going to increase as well. Climate change is also going to have profound consequences for our forests and wetlands and lakes, even regionally and right here. We're likely to see dead zones form in our deeper lakes during the summertime. We're likely to see replacement of the trout, whitefish, and salmon in the Great Lakes with warm water species like sunfishes and basses, carp, and catfish. We're likely to see pests like European corn borers, soybean leaf beetles, gypsy moths, and hemlock woolly adelgids increase in our area. They're already moving north and threatening our agricultural and forest systems. In a lot of the world, the mosquitoes that are vectors for things like dengue fever and malaria and Zika virus are already moving to higher elevations and higher latitudes. They're already in the continental US, and as they move north, the diseases are moving right along with them, and they're likely to keep doing so. I'm guessing that everybody has heard that 97% of climate scientists agree that the climate is changing and that human activity is the primary driver of it, and that's true. But the consensus is actually even a lot broader than that. The National Academies of Science of virtually all nations in the world, including our own, have issued statements that climate change is real, that we understand its physical bases quite well, that it's largely caused by human activity, and that climate change presents a clear and present danger to the advances in human health, standards of living, and political and economic progress that we've made over the last several centuries. Now, some of that might seem like it's details. It's just a bunch of details, perhaps, but there are so many details, and collectively they have life or death consequences for millions of people. Everything necessary to sustain humans on our planet, including the economy, is entirely dependent upon the integrity of natural processes like the climate system. Modern science provides us with the best way to understand that, and we want to help our city make decisions now that the people who live here 50, 100, and even 300 years from now look back upon and be both proud and thankful. Thank you.
My name is Brian Bodenbender, and I live at 400 2nd Avenue in Holland Township. I chair the Department of Geological and Environmental Sciences at Hope College. I second the statements that my colleagues have made regarding the merits of the science behind climate change, but I won't repeat them. Instead, I'd like to speak about local actions that we can take to respond to climate change. I'll remind us of what we can do and why we would want to do it. Holland already has a blueprint for actions to address climate change. That blueprint is the Community Energy Plan put forward in 2011. Indeed, the city has been taking positive action over the last several years, most notably by bringing on the combined cycle gas turbine at the Holland Energy Park. This has played a big role in reducing Holland's greenhouse gas emissions. The energy park is a big first step, but it is certainly not the only step in the plan. Home energy retrofits that use familiar, readily available, and relatively cheap technologies like insulation, caulk, and weather stripping should save homeowners money on heating and cooling bills while also reducing the demand for electricity generation, reducing fossil fuel use, and reducing our local output of greenhouse gases. District heating has great potential to replace fossil fuel use, especially if we use it to heat buildings instead of just to melt snow. The Community Energy Plan also mentions biogas generation as a way to create energy resources locally. It mentions infrastructure for electric vehicles. It discusses solar energy for helping reduce peak load. It discusses increasing walkability of the city, and I might add bikeability as an unstated extension of that. Beyond the energy plan, we can envision larger projects such as building a waste-to-energy facility or scaling up biogas digestion to convert compostable waste into a resource. This could serve existing industries and potentially attract new ones. The energy plan lays out good economic reasons for actions that increase Holland's attractiveness to businesses that prioritize climate action. A simple summary is that renewable energy we generate locally or energy we save locally avoids sending money out of our region, while climate-friendly infrastructure may draw new investment to our area. Beyond economic reasons, we see changes around us. We see that planting zones on seed packets have been moving north. We see increased pests like the emerald ash borer. We see reduced predictability of precipitation and increased amounts of precipitation. We see rapid lake level changes that are affecting infrastructure. Just as one small example of that, no one has biked under the River Avenue Bridge in more than a year because the underpass is underwater. Whether you think the climate is changing naturally or because of human influence, we have incentives to keep our climate as stable as possible, both locally and on a national and worldwide scale. The world has well over $200 trillion in infrastructure built for our current climate. And some of that infrastructure is right here in Holland. We are wise if we take actions to reduce the threats to our infrastructure by limiting the greenhouse gases we add to the atmosphere. Let's stop pushing the climate away from the stable situation we've enjoyed since the founding of Holland. In this regard, our biggest step so far in building the Holland Energy Park is really only a half measure. It improves our carbon dioxide output compared to the coal that Holland used to burn for electricity, but it still adds fossil carbon to our atmosphere. Developing renewable alternatives will let us cut our greenhouse gas contributions more. Holland is a good size to act nimbly while making changes at a scale that individuals can't address. In summary, the 2011 Community Energy Plan lays out viable actions we haven't yet taken, along with compelling reasons to take them. Rather than coasting after taking the first steps, let's keep pushing forward with fresh enthusiasm, or if you prefer, with renewed energy.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Vanderoost. My address is 68205 Riverview Drive in South Haven, Michigan. I'm a junior studying chemistry at Hope College, and I am blessed to be an intern for the Hope Advocates for Sustainability organization, which has provided me the opportunity to speak to you all today. And I'd like to thank Michelle Gibbs for supporting my sustainable endeavors and providing me the resources to pursue this interest of mine. Growing up, I was fairly conscious of my carbon footprint and the adverse effects my actions had on the environment. I would recycle and try to carpool often, but living in an environmentally friendly manner wasn't my top priority. That changed when I attended a Geological Society of America conference 2 years ago. That event proved to be a turning point in my life, and my commitment to sustainability became solidified as a result. While some scientists at this conference were studying the chemical rate of decay of certain molecules, other environmental researchers were investigating the rate of decay of the entire planet itself. I crossed paths with these specific scientists and discussed their analyses on environmental degradation and their projections of future resource limitations. I was absolutely floored. Rising seawater levels, increased global temperatures, more unpredictable weather patterns, and freshwater scarcity seemed inevitable. A sense of doom crept over me as I envisioned these predictions coming to fruition. Instead of shying away from this monumental problem, I experienced this profound call to action. I felt morally responsible to get involved in sustainability to help prevent these global issues from intensifying. Especially after taking Earth and Ethics with Dr. Boma Prediger, environmental protection was a problem that I could not turn my back on. I had to do something. I find that promoting sustainability involves a twofold strategy: engaging in personal transformations and supporting widespread systematic change. I began reflecting on my own lifestyle and realized that I needed to make personal changes that were compatible with my sustainable intentions. I'm a firm believer in the idea that if you wish to see substantial change occur, that change must originate from yourself. Over the past year and a half, I've transitioned to a vegan diet to help mitigate the harmful effects of industrial agriculture. I refuse to take warm showers in an effort to save energy and water. By collaborating with the Hope College Dining Services, I've helped establish a Meatless Monday program at Hope Dining Halls to advocate for environmentally friendly plant-based diets. I hope that this systematic alteration will shift the perspectives of the Hope College body. So I have made and will continue to make sacrifices in order to promote a more sustainable society. And it's not just me doing this. My generation is passionate about taking care of the planet, and this movement has gained considerable traction. I strongly encourage all of you to reconsider your lifestyle and habits, if you have not already, to see if any sustainable alterations could be made. As for widespread systematic change, reevaluating the community energy plan is an excellent opportunity to steer our infrastructure towards a more sustainable direction. With a problem of this magnitude, collective action throughout the entire community is necessary. Sustainable collaboration between the City Council and the Holland Board of Public Works would make Holland a forward-thinking community that is investing in the future. The significance of your decisions regarding this plan cannot be overemphasized. As you review the community energy plan, please think long-term and keep my generation and those who follow in mind. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Stewart, and I live at 4636 Sailview Drive, and I'm a professor of chemistry at Hope College. It is my honor this evening to read a letter to you from our president, President Matt Scogan of Hope College. Dear members of Holland City Council, first, my apologies for being unable to attend this meeting in person, but thank you for allowing Professor Joanne Stewart to read this brief letter. Though I have served as president at Hope College for less than 1 year, it is very clear to me that Hope College and the City of Holland are inextricably intertwined. Indeed, both Holland and Hope have a symbiotic relationship dating back to our shared beginnings in the middle of the 19th century. The city and the college have struggled and have flourished together, so we do well to acknowledge our mutual dependence. On the issue of climate change, let there be no mistake. The science is clear. Climate change is one of the biggest challenges we face in this century. At Hope, we believe two foundational things. One, God has called us to be good stewards of his creation. And two, caring for the environment is one way we can love our neighbor. Those of us in positions of leadership must act wisely and quickly if we are to address this growing crisis. The City of Holland and Hope College have done much in recent years to promote a more sustainable future, but we must do more. I'm excited about what Hope is doing and am eager to collaborate with the city in ways that benefit us all. So, with Professor Murray, Professor Bodenbender, and Dean Van Wylen, along with the others from Hope here at this meeting, let me reiterate our offer to be of help to the city in whatever way we can, by providing expertise in understanding climate science, by performing social scientific research, and by assisting with an update of the Community Energy Plan. Holland has a rich history of leadership in so many areas. Let us commit to making our hometown more sustainable by reducing our collective carbon footprint. Sincerely, Matthew A. Scogan, President of Hope College.
My name's Laura Judge. I live at 6510 Oakwood Lane, Holland. I'm a city retiree, so a few of you probably recognize me. I'm also going to talk about global warming a little bit, and I didn't realize all these really smart Hope people were here today with a lot of scientific language, so I'm going to kind of abbreviate my comments accordingly and cut that piece out. I am just here to thank you for your recent commitment in your top 10 priorities to review and update the Holland Community Energy Plan. This is a very significant forward-thinking action on your part. All scientific reports are pointing to a shortening 10 to 12-year window for worldwide aggressive action to drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions, or we face a global warming catastrophe. I applaud you for acknowledging that Holland's 2011 Community Energy Plan is outdated in relation to the latest science. Because our national politicians have failed to act, it now falls primarily upon cities, counties, states, and individual citizens to mobilize toward long-lasting and powerful solutions to cut emissions. Holland may be sitting in a relative sweet spot when it comes to temperature rise and access to adequate water supplies, but flooding and ground erosion from bigger and more frequent rain events have already started to impact us locally. Over 1,000 local governments in 18 countries have already signed climate emergency declarations. Your children and grandchildren are depending upon you to act up on their behalf to set the tone for the greater Holland community, to lead by example. To be a responsible and compassionate world citizen, Holland must not isolate itself to its small geographic footprint. Emissions from Holland's power plant make their way to Zeeland and surrounding townships, and when China produces goods for U.S. consumption, we share their carbon footprint, which heavily relies on coal. I'm asking you tonight to consider action on three things. First, Holland should join the ranks of many other local governments in passing a resolution to proclaim a climate emergency and prioritize action in every aspect of the city's business and development. In Michigan, Traverse City, Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, and Northport have committed to 100% goals in the coming decades. 100% renewable energy community-wide by 2035 should be your goal. Second, updating the community energy plan should be intentional, swift, and serious. A qualified and budgeted staff person should be allocated to organize this process with input from the BPW, Hope College, and GVSU scientists, the Sustainability Committee, the Sierra Club, and the Holland Area Energy and Climate Crisis Advocacy Collaborative. For example, district heating needs to be promoted in facilities like the Aquatic Center. We need green electrification of public transit, automobiles, and trucks. Electric vehicle charging stations should be installed in every apartment complex. Greenhouse gas emissions must be tracked and reported to the public, and a goal of city-wide carbon net zero by 2035 should be adopted. Third, the city should join in the call for Consumers Energy to speed up the Campbell coal plant retirement dates in Port Sheldon. The current shutdown schedules for units 1 and 2 by 2031 and unit 3 by 2040 are unacceptable. Those emissions affect Holland's health. Long traffic delays in Holland caused by coal trains are unacceptable. And if Great Britain can set a zero coal target for 2024, why do we get a free pass? And if it's okay, I'd like to give copies of a proposed resolution to Kathy to distribute later. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Joanne Henriksen, 338 Royal Park Drive, Zeeland. My grandfather was such a good man. He was a supervisor at the U.S. Steel Company in Lorain, Ohio. The expansive plant was in south side of the city, where there were slums and bars. Many of the blue-collar workers who lived there were African Americans. It was 1930. My grandfather was an outstanding tenor and sang My Wild Irish Rose so beautifully that you would weep, so I was told. He used his talent on stage of the Palace Theater, which the city of Lorain now owns. He was part of vaudeville, participated in blackface, and sang Old Man River in black dialect. He was a good man, family man, was an Episcopalian, and loved his community. Today in 2020, his contributions would not only be inappropriate, but would be banned by the Lorain City Council. Being the good man that he was, he would never even participate in such art form for the public delight. At the recent Holland City Council study session, the city's department heads gave updates as to what was happening in their area: sidewalks and streets, parks and recreation, sewers. In the Civic Center report, it was specifically stated that the venue works hired by the Civic Center Board had plans for 2020 to engage in a wide variety of opportunities. This statement curiously brought smiles. I knew what this might mean. The Civic Center Board a year ago decided to have a drag brunch to take place on Sunday. This caused a flurry of attention and accusations. It was an election year, so that had some bearing on the turmoil. Now in 2020, there is a shift from politics. You are here as elected officials to work under the guidelines of how to govern effectively, unified and respectfully. This is your standard as public servants. Last Sunday's drag brunch is the issue. It is an art form done by very talented and sincere people. The Civic Center Board, under the government of this city council, approved it again for this year as a possible annual event. It is an entertaining art form, and in no way am I qualifying it as inappropriate because of who performed. As I come with the same respect I have for my grandfather's blackface art form entertainment, I evaluate the drag breakfast performance in the Civic Center on Sunday as inappropriate. Number one, it is seen as disrespectful and mocking women. The fact that it is enjoyed is not the issue. It is troubling that the event was billed for adults only. This year it was expanded for a limited number of children, 15, who are required to be accompanied by their parents. Number two, our Holland majority population is faith-based, according to the Sentinel. Sunday is a special day to many. Also, I wondered what happened this past Sunday to the warm, welcoming United Church of Christ, who meet for their 10 o'clock service in the Civic Center. As much as I respect my grandfather's talent, I also respect the drag queens and their skills. It is just inappropriate to have them perform in Holland on Sunday. I'm very sensitive to the LGBT activism, agenda, and encroachment. It must be considered what happens in other communities. Drag floats in the city parades, June Pride celebration, including parades down main streets, public libraries with drag individuals reading to young children. The Civic Center Board and the Holland City Council is responsible to keep the Civic Center activities family-friendly and non-confrontational. Allow the talented drag art form to perform in privately owned facilities like the Boatworks or the American Legion. This is a win for both the City of Holland and the drag performers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. One last call.
I guess I will. I wasn't going to. Since you guys are don't have anything else to do tonight. Bob Ashby, songs 967 Songbird Lane. I would like to continue tonight from the comments I introduced at the council's last main session. As mentioned last time, government is responsible for its own behavior towards citizens, not that of the internal liabilities of all of society's subgroups. Doing so would be true regulation of private lives. If any government becomes an activist in a lifestyle question, it must do so on the basis of a true picture of the lifestyle. Harms from the LGBT community lifestyle by and toward members themselves and society is well documented. Abuse in the same-sex relationships is well above rates in the general population. Between male partners, the rate is as high as twice the general population. Between female partners, the rates of physical abuse are 30% higher, and verbal abuse is 90% higher. Emotionally, LGBTQs are 6.5 times more likely for suicide and 75% more battle depression. Medically, lifespans within the group are 8 to 29 years shorter because of higher rates of sexually transmitted diseases. HIV/AIDS is occurring in 64% of all male cases. The situation is exacerbated further by the common practice of multiple partnerings. Although monogamous relationships occur, studies have shown that the average duration is about 5 years, and then after that, the majority create special arrangements. In contrast, and it's not in my notes, but contrary to popular belief, the heterosexual relationships are actually about 75% solid for men and 85% for women. It is widely promoted to the public that religious conversion or psychotherapy are ineffective and harmful. The intent is evidently eventually to bring about government actions which would force such interventions out of existence. That's kind of where Holland comes in. That commonly accepted claim is simply untrue. According to the new APA publications, Answers to Your Questions for a Better Understanding of Sexual Orientation and Homosexuality, there is no consensus among scientists about the exact reasons that an individual develops a heterosexual, bisexual, gay, or lesbian orientation. I'm going to skip down a little bit. One of the justifications for attacks on psychological and spiritual therapies that facilitate leaving the LGBTQ lifestyle is that, apparently, the APA warns of their dangers. But the APA hypocritically holds such therapies and ministries to a higher standard. They insist that even if a person permanently leaves the lifestyle but still has to work at avoiding old attractions, they have not really been, quote unquote, cured. However, yet it is their accepted wisdom that if a perfectly normal ex-alcoholic views themselves as alcoholics for the rest of their lives, or for people with eating disorders constantly have to be on guard for failing in the future, that's okay. Activists also claim that there are no ex-gays of any amount to prove that it's possible to leave the lifestyle. The problem is that ex-gays are a huge public target for LGBTQ activists. Organizations which help people change do not keep records of numbers or lists of names. But think about this. Over the last 40 years, there has been a continual growth of helping ministries and organizations, and they're still growing. Not possible if they were shams. Many of these organizations are either national or international in scope, and you have a list of them there. The real burdens are documented over and over again throughout mental health systems, social services, and the legal system. The real threat of harm is one that is genuinely documented over and over again against those who dissent from the gay rights agenda. It must be emphasized again that this is the true end game of a city ordinance push. If any government action is warranted, it is toward the greater constitutional harm. Given all this information with more forthcoming, why would any government entity elevate protections?
Thank you, Bob. Don't see anybody moving toward the microphone. This is the last call. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the comments. Thank you all for being here. And you can stay for the rest of the meeting. It proves to be very, very interesting. I will close the public comment, and as we say, move on to the second page. Board of Public Works resolution declaring intent to reimburse project expenditures with bond proceeds and requesting publication of notice of intent to issue bonds.
Good evening, City Council, and it's great to be with you tonight. This is an exciting project that we have in front of us that this bond is associated with, and I do appreciate the recognition from those that spoke this evening, as well as it relates to the other big project over the last few years in the Holland Energy Park, coming into being. I did want to take just a minute, though, maybe, and I think it does fit in with this item as well, maybe just to mention for those at home, because some information was presented in terms of what has happened with our portfolio. That I want to remind council and those at home as well that it's not just Holland Energy Park that's part of our portfolio, but a lot of other progress has been made, on the conversion of our portfolio over the time that's in alignment, really, with our community energy plan. There is now also 32 megawatts of wind in our portfolio. There is 13 megawatts of solar that's under construction on the largest solar farm in Michigan that is entirely public power funded and supported. And there's 6 megawatts of landfill gas using biogas, and landfill gas methane is actually 20 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So by converting that methane to carbon dioxide, there's a net reduction associated with carbon, not just a zero situation there. So in addition to the wonderfully efficient Holland Energy Park, there are a lot of other things that the BPW certainly isn't coasting as it relates to that. So, but also, I just want to mention that this project also brings another renewable resource to the table. The project is associated with our water reclamation facility and is anaerobic digestion. And anaerobic digestion is an important project in order to help us meet a growing cost that's facing our community, and that is the disposal of biosolids. Biosolids is a byproduct of the wastewater treatment process, and currently there are 2 ways that we dispose of that. We either use it as a farm fertilizer on farm fields in more of a wet form, or we have to dewater it into something that, I'm going to use the term, Keith, sludge cakes, as it's called, and it actually is disposed in a landfill. The costs are rising dramatically in all those disposal options. Farm fields are getting less available. There's also some issue with the accessibility on the farm fields that are available due to crop timings and weather patterns and things like that, so it becomes very unpredictable. The landfills are beginning to restrict more and more the disposal of the biosolids because there's less dry waste going to the landfills. And that's a good thing. We're recycling more as a society, but with less dry waste going to the landfills, there's less ability to receive what they would classify as a wet waste and mix it. So as the costs are escalating dramatically, anaerobic digestion provides an opportunity to save costs in the long run by reducing the biosolids in half. So instead of having all of that trucked to a landfill and also increasing the carbon footprint associated with trucking, we are able to take not only that and reduce it in half, but what gets generated is a gas that can also be utilized for heating and power. And this project contemplates the use for both, combined heat and power. We've done initial assessments of this project to get an original budgetary scope for it. We are now going through the process of more refined engineering. We're up to about a 30% engineering on this project. And that may change the scope slightly. I talked about combined heat and power. That's sort of an additive thing. We're zeroing in on the appropriate size of the vessel. We are launching a very significant community engagement effort. We've had a lot of conversations with a number of groups around the community. So in a lot of ways, we're following the same footprint, the same plan, I should say, as related to Holland Energy Park, in really being very diligent and thorough in our process to make sure that we're doing the best thing possible on all aspects of this project. Another really key feature of this is the financing, which is right in front of you tonight. And a very important part of that is that we were able to seek financing through the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan has a state revolving fund for wastewater projects. And with that state revolving fund, what's involved in that is the state would actually buy bonds from the BPW at a guaranteed rate, and that rate is 2%, which is a very, very attractive number for the length of time that we would be issuing these bonds. And another key feature with going with the sewer revolving fund is we were able to apply for this under what's called the green project designation. And there's a reserve that's set aside for green projects, and that reserve allows for principal forgiveness of some of that. And in this particular case, we have been awarded $4.6 million of principal forgiveness on this project. So again, not only would it be 2% on the loan, but with the principal forgiveness, it essentially is lower than 2% effectively because of that principal forgiveness associated with that. So we're very excited about it. Not only does it do that from a beneficial standpoint, but it also reduces the odor potential at the plant. The biodigestion process is one that actually allows that to happen. Granville, for example, has a very similar type of anaerobic digester. They don't have any odor control at their plant because the anaerobic digester really takes care of the odor potential at the plant. So this would go to enhance that situation. Further, the biosolids that actually get created have a different classification. We currently generate what's called Class B biosolids. With the change in going with the anaerobic digester, it actually allows us to generate a Class A biosolid. Why does that matter? Currently, the farm fields that we can place the fertilizer on, or the biosolids, have to be farm fields that are growing crops not for human consumption, but for livestock consumption. A Class A biosolid can be put on your backyard. And so basically the restrictions are much less. It allows for potentially the opportunity maybe to create a reusable product long term. The financial assessment that we did for this project does not consider any of that. It considers our normal disposal processes with the costs that we see today for Class B biosolids. So we think that we're being conservative in that estimate. But even with that, doesn't really matter how much the cost of the escalation is of the biosolids. This project pays for itself in the long run. We are expecting, though, the expected escalation is about 7% in the cost of the biosolids disposal. And with that, it's not a very long time until this project starts becoming cash flow positive. And beyond that, when the bonds are paid off, we significantly see a reduction in cost, along with the ability to actually increase our renewable portfolio in supplying heat and power for the wastewater plant site. And so tonight, what's in front of you is a resolution. It is a necessary step in the process of issuing bonds as a notice of intent. These are revenue bonds. So even though the state is buying them, we have to actually go through a bonding process, either under a general obligation bond process or a revenue bond. A revenue bond is really supported of a pledge of revenues. So there's no tax backstop on this. There's no obligation that diminishes the city's power of bonding. This is pledging the revenues from the wastewater utility and from the contract that we have at the water reclamation facility with the northern area, which are the townships. They have an obligation to pay 50% of the financing. And so the amount that we have on this bond is $30 million. Now, that is not saying that we are going to bond $30 million. But because we're going through the engineering process and we are trying to refine the scope, this gives us in the notice of intent the latitude to finance up to that amount. And certainly the amount will be zeroed in on as we get through the final engineering. And so that is what is in front of you tonight. It is a period of time that starts a referendum period. And I think after 45 days, then we have the ability to actually move forward on the next step of that project. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave?
No, all my questions were about the bonding, and you answered them all.
Okay.
I think that was well said.
Thank you very much.
Quincy?
Yes, can you speak to the location? Have we looked at other locations as well as the location current?
Well, the location is on the water reclamation facility site. It is on the east side of River Avenue. The water reclamation facility straddles River Avenue, essentially. It's on one of the lowest areas within the site to try to keep the profile as small, if you can say small on a digester of its size. It's pretty difficult to say that. But it is necessary there from the standpoint of the fact that the biosolids are being generated through the waste treatment process. If we moved it somewhere else, we would have the hauling costs of it to another facility to create the treatment and then of the biodigestion, and then the resulting reduction in those biosolids would have to be shipped back for the additional dewatering that ultimately is happening. So you have all that handling involved there, so it'd be prohibitive to really put it on any other site.
Thank you.
Lynn?
A constituent was asking me the other day about the failure of the Lowell anaerobic digester, and so I'm wondering if you could provide some assurances that the Holland digester will not have the same problem.
There are a lot of differences between the Lowell digester and what we're proposing here. Again, my relation of what you should look at is really the Granville site. The design, number one, of the Lowell one was one where there was more of a fabric top to it. It wasn't even a solid structure. This is actually a full welded metal structure all the way around it. Everything is contained within the process itself. Two, that facility had a very variable fuel stock, essentially. They were getting different waste from a number of different food sources, and it was irregular, and it was also, again, varied in terms of the source. This will be the same sludge product coming out of or biosolids product coming out of the waste treatment plant process, so very stable and consistent source. The other thing is, because of the infrequent nature there, a lot of times that waste product inside the digester was allowed to go sour. And the last piece I would say is that was built by private equity with the intent of profitability. This is built obviously with the idea of reliability. So, there's a lot of different factors involved here.
Thank you.
I believe Nikki was next.
Oh, well,
go ahead.
I've already spoken. Okay, well, my question, you had, as you say, a reduction, a potential reduction in odor.
Yes.
More than now, but you don't know, I mean.
No, we expect actually odors to be very minimal, if at all, on the site. Matter of fact, what we see on these sites generally is that there is the elimination of that odor in the process. One of our highest odor potential areas within our plant is the actual area where we handle the biosolids and dewater it. And because all of that will be after the digestion process, it eliminates really the odor potential through the digestion process. So,
Makes sense. Thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, Dave, a couple of the byproducts of this process that you mentioned I think are interesting and important to highlight. One is the gas that's produced as a result of this.
right.
I'm assuming that's not just a little stream, but it is a significant amount.
It's enough to generate about half of the electricity on the site of the water reclamation facility, about a half a megawatt essentially of power. So it's not, it's not like gas supply for Holland Energy Park, but for the size of the facility, it's pretty substantial.
Well, who knows? We may gain enough capacity that we could, close down that little thing on 6th Street,
Right.
that we've talked about before. And the other thing is the final byproduct or product, if you will, itself. If I recall correctly, I think the city of Milwaukee a number of years ago, through a process, actually produced milorganite.
Yes.
Is this a similar product?
It is. Now, milorganite itself, it's essentially what Milwaukee's waste treatment plant process is there after the digestion. And there may be some additional additives and things. There's an opportunity really to mix this product with other things to create materials that could be used, for sale, essentially. And I will tell you that because Holland isn't the only one, that will have a digester. Again, Granville has one. There are other facilities in Ottawa County that are considering this and facing the same things that we are in terms of this disposal cost. Is that throughout the county, there's now a feasibility study that's being done in conjunction with the county's road commission, who operate utilities for the county. They are leading an initiative that Holland is participating in to look at the potential of a facility to actually create a drying area and a ability to create a saleable product, essentially, or a reusable product. So we're excited about, where that could potentially go.
So a lot of potential upsides to it,
Absolutely.
even though it will look like a big old egg.
Well, and the other piece of that I think it's important to indicate is Holland Energy Park wasn't small, right? And so I'm not saying this is going to look like Holland Energy Park, but one of the things that we identified is that, we're not going to hide Holland Energy Park. We might as well embrace it. And so, we created an educational opportunity out of it. And I think we have the same potential, here when you think about the walkways along that window on the waterfront. We're looking at bringing now sidewalk or circumnavigate the entire facility. We're thinking about adding some wayfinding and some interpretive signage to help people understand what's going on there and their role in it, just like we're doing with energy at Holland Energy Park. So, it's going to be an object that people are going to be able to identify with, and hopefully that's a good thing.
Thank you, Dave.
We can make lemonade out of a lemon, but don't paint the thing yellow, please.
Well, orange.
Any other questions? I had to, folks, I had to. All right. If there are no other questions, there is a recommendation on the table. I'm looking for a motion.
Move we adopt?
Hoekstra and Byrd. Any other comments? If not, please call the roll.
Peters.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Arnshorst.
Yes.
Corbin.
Yes.
Hoekstra.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Byrd.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tutui.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now moving on down to transportation services, adoption of proposed budget for the city's portion of the 20th and 21st Street reconstruction project. Mr. White.
Okay, good evening, council members. Tonight before you is another example of a city and BPW joint project. This one, again, just no real glitz and glamour with this. It's traditional infrastructure improvements that we intend to do. And the map's not coming through real good. But basically, in terms of the limits, we're talking about reconstructing a portion of 21st Street between Van Raalte and Ottawa Avenue, a portion of 20th Street between Michigan Avenue and Maple Avenue, and then also Cleveland between 22nd and 19th. Now that's a fairly desegmented project, but what it does is it represents the culmination of a lot of work in that central city area between 16th, 24th, Ottawa, and Michigan. And this really represents the culmination of a lot of infrastructure in that area that, again, will serve us for many years to come. Included within the project are approximately 80 water service replacements. A lot of this infrastructure, and again, not just water, but storm sewer as well, is approaching, if not exceeding, 100 years of service life. And so this is a great opportunity to work together with the BPW to upgrade necessary infrastructure and utilities. So the recommendation before you tonight is to approve the city's portion of the project in the amount of $1.2 million as laid out in the project budget. And that's what's before you tonight.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Any questions for staff?
No.
Looking for a motion to support the recommendation.
So move.
Arnshorst. And
See ya.
yeah, that guy. I see it. He's so quiet I didn't forget who he is.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
No, I just wanted to mention to the public that what our report says, this project represents the culmination of several years' worth of work. Whenever we spend a lot of money, I always want to say this isn't just a whim we have. It's been in the works for a while.
It's encompassing a very big area and
Correct.
it's coming to a close. All right, if there are no other comments, questions, or concerns, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Garcia.
Yes.
Arnshorst.
Yes.
Corbin.
Yes.
Hoekstra.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trichui?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And now on to Community and Neighborhood Services, Waterfront Holland Next Steps, Consulting Engagement Agreement.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So a short introduction. The community, I hope, is well aware of a very successful community engagement and planning process that Council culminated here a couple months ago by adopting a vision, guiding principles, and a framework, guiding a diagram that talked about the community's aspirations for our waterfront. And when we say waterfront, we talk about the waterfront from the aforementioned Holland Energy Park through multiple different iterations of types of waterfront out to where the Heinz plant is and the Heinz waterfront walkway. Through that process, the city engaged with many partners, and one of those partners were consultants that brought capacity to us, but more importantly, brought expertise to the city and BPW staff to make sure that we had a quality project and laid great framework for moving forward. Council had the opportunity in pre-council, but we are recommending this evening a not-to-exceed contract of $55,000 with new partners, new experts that can take us now into the implementation possibilities and opportunities of implementing this Waterfront Holland. So with us tonight is Jeff Rule and Ronadeep Bose from Hitchcock Design and SD Friedman. And I've asked them to come forward and just take a few minutes to outline their firm, what expertise they bring to us in a possible partnership, and what we could expect from them moving forward. Thank you.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members and City Manager Keith. Thanks so much for inviting us back. We were part of the visiting process, and my name is Jeff Rail, Hitchcock Design Group. We're planners and landscape architects based out of the Chicago area. As I mentioned, we were involved in the visiting process conceptually, and we're thrilled that the council ultimately voted to accept that vision for Waterfront Holland. As we move into the implementation stage, there are certain skill sets that we think are valuable. One of the expertises that we offer is waterfront design and development. We have a track record of about 30 years of developing waterfronts, and this is not unusual for a type of project that we would undertake. There's a component to the implementation strategy, though, that we don't have in-house, and that is the services that Ronadeep is going to describe, which is related to the reality test of how do you acquire the land, what are the strategies, and the financial strategies. And so with that, we partnered with SB Friedman in the past on other projects. He's a planner with a senior vice president with SB Friedman, and I'll have him explain the scope of work that the bulk of that proposal is related to.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, council members and City Manager Keith. So again, my name is Ronadeep Bose. I'm a Senior Vice President at SB Friedman Development Advisors. We see this as a great partnership with the city and with Jeff and Hitchcock. So we bring the financial side to the analysis, and Jeff brings in the physical design aspect to it. What you have already, as Jeff mentioned, is a great vision for moving forward, and our real scope of services is taking you towards implementation. And our focus for this in terms of our services is fairly flexible. We do things from the vision stage, which is at the market feasibility, all the way to deal structuring and negotiations. And so what our hope is that we will refine the scope, which is what the city needs, and then move forward for just pathway forward on implementation as we go forward on this. So, and a quick background about our firm. We are Chicago-based as well. We have 25 people who basically focus on the real estate side of planning. And what I think we need for this project to move forward is actually building on the community engagement and the feedback we've got from the community, but also getting what the development community wants to do. And for a project to be successful, it is really merging the community interest with what the development community wants to do and what the city wants to do. Really, that's the synthesis of those will lead to successful project implementation. And that's what we are hoping to bring to the table here, is that we want to build on the engagement, do an outreach to the development community and synthesize those components so that we have a financially feasible pathway to implementation.
Fantastic. We had a great presentation upstairs. We had a great discussion, but are there any more questions from council at this point? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion on the recommendation for the not to exceed $55,000 professional services to assist in the implementation of the Waterfront Holland development opportunities with Hickok Design and
Friedman.
yes, thank you. Yeah, that one. It's not written here, so.
Yeah, we have one, it would be one contract with Hitchcock, and then SD Friedman is a
It's part of that.
subcontractor of
Thank you. Yes,
Hitchcock.
I knew that.
Move we adopt the recommendation that includes all that stuff you said.
Thank you, Dave. Second?
Second.
Aaron's Horst on the second. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Need a roll call on this one, Madam Clerk?
Arnstorst,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Peters, Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tuthui.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Before we leave this, I just want to rest assured to the citizens of Holland that no decision has been made as far as which one of the four categories is going to be looked at. This is still very much in the development stage. This is just the next process down the line, talking to some of the private, because this is a lot of the land that we're looking at is privately held. We need to have they need to have a discussion with those private property owners to see what the interest is, to see what the capabilities and possibilities are. So just rest assured that no decision has been made. It's not going to happen tomorrow. This is in the process to come yet. Little editorial note there. All right, moving on down to number 6, Management and Administrative Services, gifts. If you would, Madam Clerk.
The city manager's office is pleased to report receipt of the following gifts. Parks and Recreation, Holland Soccer Project, Bruce and Margie Johnson, $1,000. Parks and Recreation, 2020 Summer Concert Series, Hayworth, Inc., $3,000. Barbara Ford, $3,000. It is recommended that these donations be accepted with appreciation, credited to the appropriate account, and an expression of gratitude be forwarded to said donors.
Looking for a motion on this?
Move we approve said donations with appreciation.
Motion, second.
Support.
Byrd and Raymond. It throws him off because I usually do that. Any comments, questions, concerns? We can do this with a voice vote. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Motion passes. We are down to communications from the city manager.
As I see that we have a closed session upcoming, which I believe will bring us past our 8:30 typical rule that I have nothing this evening.
You're a wise man.
Uh-oh.
We also have some appointments, a couple of appointments with communication from the mayor, or in this case, Mayor Pro Tem. The recommendation is to approve the appointment of Jennifer Owen to the Planning Commission, term to expire June 30th, 2023, and Tim Vreeman to the Civic Center Place Board, term to expire June 30 of 2020. Ms. Owens replaces Commissioner Marvin Martin, who has been a steadfast fixture in that place for quite some time. And Mr. Vreeman will be replacing the mayor. Is there a motion?
So move that these appointments are made.
Arnshorst? Garcia. I remembered you this time. Any questions, comments? Madam Clerk, we need a roll call.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Peters? Garcia?
Yes.
Arnshorst?
Yes.
Corbin?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Thule?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We have video tonight or no? No video tonight. Okay.
In production, Mr. Mayor.
Pardon me?
In production.
Ah, good, creative minds. All right, appointments, motions, communication from council members.
Yes, I have something. Keith, is this where I do it? Okay.
Matt's going back to our original slide deck, so you have your talking slides, Nikki.
It's okay. I'm on the Sustainability Committee, and I wanted to give an update. The mayor has some, he was going to give some updates on the sustainability film series, and so it dovetailed nicely. He's not here, so I'll give mine first. And I didn't have a printout, so I'm going to read it off my phone. The Sustainability Committee just met Monday, and the bylaws state that they should report its activities to council at 6-month intervals. Number one, elections were held. The new chair is Carolyn Halstead. The vice chair is Colleen Nagel. The committee accepted the application of Paul Rowe to fill a vacancy. Suscom also presented findings on the recycling changes that they presented to you last week. And in the past, they've made sustainability recommendations regarding vehicle idling, construction designs such as sustainable furniture, dark skies lighting projects. They are thinking of a public survey as they go on. They are, they finished the recycling and they would like council input. They're very aware that the Ottawa County has done an overview of all the committees and commissions, and things may change in the future. So, they're thinking of a public survey. What is their next project? What's the next thing to after recycling? So they're a little, in a holding pattern right now. So if council would like to give input, and then maybe we want to wait until later once we get the Ottawa County report, but that's what's going on right now. Along with that, there is a winter sustainability film series starting Tuesday, February 25th, The Merchants of Doubt. Also Tuesday, March 31st, Wally, and these are at Graves Hall beginning at 7 p.m. You'll receive these in your packet. The next one would be Economic Sustainability, Tuesday, March 10th at Herrick District Library, 6:30 p.m. And then the Holland Area Youth Sustainability Showcase, Tuesday, April 14th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the library. Save the date, finally, the Green Commute Expo, June 1st, 2020, at the Civic Center parking lot, partnering with the Farmers Market, 5 to 8 p.m., and there'll be a number of different things, hopefully some e-cars and other little things you can try out. So, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Nick. Anybody else? As was mentioned just a few minutes ago, we do not have a first reading of ordinance, so we're down to number 17. As mentioned earlier, we have a recommendation to go into a closed-door session to review a written legal opinion with the city attorney. I understand that there will be no action after the termination of that, and we will be going upstairs for that. So I'm entertaining a motion to go into a closed session.
So moved.
Hoekstra? Support Garcia.
Do you need a roll call for that?
Yes, we will take a roll call. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd? Peters? Garcia?
Yes.
Arnshorst?
Yes.
Corbin?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trethewey?
Yes,
Motion passes.
we are dismissed to a closed door session.